First Reddit post I saw from was the subject line is still with this shit. You know you're 40, right? Last Friday, my ex-wife dropped my daughter off earlier than expected. At that point, I was still in the garage finishing off a workout, and when I lift, I usually listen to loud music or a podcast, depending on my mood. It's two very different things.
It's normal. That's normal. I feel like I'm the same way. Sometimes you want music. Sometimes you just want a little talking or whatever.
Well, that day I was in a devilish mood and I had cytotoxin blasting at levels that would have kicked me out of the neighborhood when her and my daughter scared the shit out of me by suddenly appearing in the garage doorway. I turned down the music and my ex-wife just looked at me and said, "Still with this shit, eh?" "Yes, we're Canadian." "You know you're 40, right?" And he goes, "Are you seriously surprised?" I asked her. And "No, I guess not," came the response. "They better not throw me in an old folks home down the road because I'll be giving the other residents coronaries blasting tech death in my room all day. I'm with this shit till I die." So that is.
I thought he was cool. He kind of lost me at the end as far as like he didn't seem as cool anymore. Where he's like, "You can lock me up in the old folks' home. Still be blasting my tunes, you know." But I did. I mean, of course, yeah. That's such a weird thing for her to say, right? Like, "Oh, you still listen to the music that you liked 10 years ago?" You know,
like, it's a funny thing for your ex-wife to say to you.
Yeah, it is a funny way to phrase it. Like, "Oh, still with this shit, eh?" Like classic ex-wife maneuver right there. You know?
I love the idea. I do have to say, I do love the idea that like you're in it until you die, and that I'm going to shock everybody with my death metal. My whole like that's what I like. I think about death metal guys is that like they're like when people hear what I listen to, they get a little freaked out.
Yeah, it's not just not normal.
That's like that's every death metal guy. Like if it's not shocking to some unnamed normie out there, some square, then like what's the point, right?
Yeah, and you can look at the song titles a lot of times and get what you're trying to get. Because I remember looking at the song titles on that Cannibal Corpse album because this guy we used to hang out with, Chinese Eric, gave it to my brother. And he gave him a Cannibal Corpse album. We listened to it, and one of the songs on there was
why did you call him Chinese Eric?
Is he Chinese?
Yes.
Okay.
I think. But yeah, we called him Chinese Eric. He sold us acid a lot. And I don't think he liked being called that. He seems like he's a really sweet guy, and we shouldn't have done that. But anyway, he would have preferred just Eric. Probably Eric. Yeah. He didn't care. It wasn't like
if you had to do it over, like
yes,
with everything you know now. But obviously, when we're younger, we don't understand that type of thing. But if you had all of your knowledge now, you'd probably just call him Eric.
I would. Yes. I don't know if the other guys would, but I definitely would. He brought it over, and I was looking at the song titles, and like one of the songs on it is called Necro Pedophile, and I was just like, Jesus Christ, this is too much for me. Like it was way too much for me, which I think is the goal. But like then as you get a little older, you find out like, oh, these guys are fucking around. The guys that make the music aren't as weird as you might think they are. It's the guys that listen to the music, right, Joe?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will put an asterisk on that. Like a number of OG Florida death metal guys have been arrested for God knows what kind of crazy things. A former guitarist in Obituary did have like human remains found with like a meth lab set up in his home when he got raided a few years ago. But yeah, for the most part, like it's shock value stuff. You know, that song specifically, like you can tell that they're clearly like giggling to each other, like trying to one up with the lyrics, like this will really get them. And then the fans that I guess have a little trouble separating fact from fiction.
Well, I mean, as a guy that does a thing, as a guy that does a podcast, like I'm
a guy that does a thing.
Yeah. I'm largely, the thing with me is like I'm one of the more normal people out there, but then the people that are on the show as guests, they like oversell me being like a weird guy. So then people in public think I'm like a really weird guy when I'm really not. And I think that is the kind of thing that happens with death metal bands.
But I spend a lot of time with you. I would say I talk to you a lot.
I'm more than anybody but my wife.
Yeah, and I would say that you do have a few things that I've maybe learned about you that I wouldn't necessarily say I've ever heard another human being say ever in my entire life, and never even considered that a human being could ever act that way. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, you're pretty normal, I would say.
Chris is doing a bit there. Swerve 13 Drum says metal isn't a phase. I'm an unapologetic lifer, age 47, and the most metal dad I know.
Horns up, brother.
And also, though, like, if you're the most metal dad you know, are you even doing it right? Like, you should maybe be surrounding yourself with like even more metal dads, so you have something to aspire to, and that you're just sort of in that light. You know, like it's like, whoa, so you don't even hang out with any other hardcore metal dads? That's not very cool.
It's like a success mindset thing, right? You know,
Yes.
if your inner crew isn't talking about, you know, the latest from Tomb Mold, like you gotta get your paper up.
Yes, absolutely.
This guy goes spot on. I remember telling my wife's grandmother, if it was a phase, I would have come out of it by now while wearing my cattle decapitation t-shirt.
And she's a grandma. She's got to be an older, elderly woman, right? And you're saying,
even if she's a 50-year-old, you know what I mean? Even if she's like a young grandma.
but I don't think so, because it's like it's also his partner, so they're older too at the time. You know, I feel like this is an elderly woman. And what, a cow decapitation, is that the name of something, or is he talking about? Like,
it's a band.
So it's on an image of a cow decapitated.
No, they do image. It's like he's the guy behind the band's like a vegan, so his imagery is like humans being farmed like cattle.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and this person says, people like what they like. I'm not going to stop listening to metal just because I age. Sure, some stuff ages badly and does suck when you're older, but death metal is fun and complex music, and honestly, I put it in the same lane as classical music and some jazz genres.
I mean, this whole thing is just confusing to me, because like I think most people like who are really into a type of music keep listening to it. I know, life, right?
Well,
like,
I think they're supposed to grow out of metal, though. Metal is like a special
like
sort
new
of
metal.
thing.
I understand.
Well,
like,
no,
you should grow out of new metal. That like that we can agree,
No.
Joe. As far as metal goes, is new metal not like a childish form of metal?
Look, I'm just saying that new metal, it has come around again. So something was there.
I mean, children are born every year, Joe. I mean, there's a new breed of teens coming up who can enjoy this very simple music.
It's not simple at all. You've never even listened to the Deftones, it feels like.
Well, I have, unfortunately, because I've lived in society. But yeah, I wish I hadn't had to.
And honestly, the Deftones are like the perfect band to play for an alien if they come to Earth.
Okay.
This guy goes, we wouldn't have death metal without jazz after all. And the guy goes, I mean, we wouldn't have death metal without cavemen banging on rocks in the 2nd century BC.
We wouldn't have without the Big Bang.
They're mad at each other now. Doesn't mean bands like Sepultura, Death, and Possessed were jamming Miles Davis when writing their first albums. Sure, maybe Cynic won't exist, but that's not death metal as a whole. And then the reply, you're being sarcastic, right?
That's one of my favorite message board replies. You're being sarcastic, right?
It means you're saying something incredibly stupid.
Yeah, and really upsetting to somebody. Like, so upsetting that they're not even sure you're being serious about it.
Because, bruh, you know nothing about death metal if you think that, especially if we talk about technical death metal. It's very influenced by free jazz and jazz fusion. Even the band's Death itself was influenced by it. And then a guy comes in and goes, not at the beginning, they weren't. Read Interview with Atheists. Chuck thought jazz had no place in death metal. Certain bands or subgenres wouldn't exist, sure, but that's not what you said. Technical death metal does not require any jazz influence at all. Some bands use it. So we're in an argument now about jazz.
We're already in the weeds, man. This is serious stuff.
Yeah, they guess they finished arguing about they did all their arguments about metal and stuff, and then so now they're doing a jazz argument.
Well,
I think music guys do love to argue, and they also love to make a list.
Oh my God. The best thing about the death metal guys is that Chris, when we did ska guys, prog guys, all those episodes, I would search the word overrated.
Overrated, yeah.
And it would be a lot of people getting furious about somebody calling their favorite band, like saying this is negative. We shouldn't even be talking about this. This is, you know what I mean? Like that did not happen when I searched for it in death metal. They went along with it and they're like, I'll tell you who's fucking overrated. And then they'd say one of the, like, they're like, you know who's overrated? Cannibal Corpse. And then people would be like, oh, look at you. You're a fucking hipster. And it would just turn into a
hell
fight.
yes.
This thing that I've been on my soapbox for like a decade about this, but like, you know, you watch enough arguments about, you know, sub genre death metal with like literally maybe 150 listeners.
Yeah.
And you realize that you got involved in model trains as a hobby, or like fly fishing as a hobby, because it's all the same forum argument over and over again.
Yeah, this person says 41 here, been listening to black metal all day. Your ex-wife sucks, LOL. And the OP comes back and he quotes your ex-wife sucks and he says frequently until I put a ring on it.
So she used to give head.
She used to suck his dick a lot.
Well, that's how it goes, you know. You put the ring on there and then say goodbye to oral sex from your wife. Any kind of sex, even penetrative sex, or pussy and vagina sex. It doesn't any kind of.
But shut up.
I love when I make fun of Brian and he takes a second to realize that it's happened.
Yeah. I also looked up if there were any erotic death metal lyrics. A guy asked, death metal with sexual/erotic lyrics. He goes, I'm making a Spotify playlist about Slanesh from Warhammer 40K.
All right.
So this guy is.
Sorry, who's is that? Just like one of the guys.
Yeah, it's one of the guys. He goes, the next guy goes, I mean, a lot of slam/brutal death metal has what I would consider sexual lyrics. It's just not all consensual or alive. So that's something they do. And a guy replies, and the OP replies and goes, somewhat unrelated, but I always wanted to listen to a band that sings about sex and eroticism in a way that isn't rapey or gory. Okay. There's a lot of those. There's most of those.
Well, it's death metal. Like we discussed,
Yeah.
It's these people who are trying to shock. And so obviously when they're talking about, it's quite easy to shock with sexual stuff. So I'd imagine that's what they try to do with their sexual lyrics, right?
Have you tried like R&B, maybe?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's actually like R&B music that is
rock really, and roll, soft rock, contemporary rock, like some of that stuff will just have, but R&B definitely. Genuine, have you heard Genuine?
Every genre of rock music based, like every genre of pop music, basically.
Everything else, even some hip hop you can find, definitely. I would say all other genres of music other than the one you like.
He goes, right. I was always interested in stuff like orgies or something in movies and stuff.
Are you reading something now, Brian? Or is
I was not. No, I'm reading the post. I was always interested in orgies or something in movies and stuff. And it'll be really cool to see that in death metal. I feel like sex is a perfect lyrical theme for death metal. Sure, sex is love and all, but sometimes sex is a sin. In other words, it's dark, not in the sense that you want to look at it like gore imagery, but you want to look at it. It kind of makes this cool contrast of reaction while both being dark concepts. Maybe instead of uncensored gore for album art, maybe it should instead have uncensored porn. Or maybe instead of detailed gore lyrics, it should instead have detailed sex acts as lyrics. So this guy just, number one, he wants porno album covers.
Right.
He wants to, I guess he's like finding that he's short on time and he wants to be like, he's finding he's spending a lot of time jacking off, spending a lot of time listening to death metal. And if he could combine those two things, he could save some time in his work week, perhaps. Because I don't understand why you would want
you gotta put them together.
But why would there be porno on the cover? Like, what is that for?
Well, that's porno. If there's one thing I know about sexy, it's porno. Porno is like one of the more sexy.
But are you not trying to be? In this sense, he's trying to. But
he wants sexy death metal. He is shooting for like I don't know why, but he wants sexy death metal, which is something that I'm going to be honest with. with you. I don't think exists, and I don't think will ever exist.
Joe, is there anything you can think of as an expert that you would be like? Have you ever listened to a song before and you got a little bit horny?
A little twerked up on this?
Yeah.
No, there's nothing more erotic to me than like a guy with really long hair that's graying, big, huge, unkempt beard going, penis and vagina.
Well, this guy brings up gore grind.
Yeah.
And the OP says, can you give me some recommendations? I'm not very familiar with the subgenre. I only know Odor of Torture by gut. I'd love to know more. The guy responds and goes, Clit Eater, Clit Eater, Cock and Ball Torture, Guttalax, Torco Fuck, Waco Jesus.
What are you reading right now? What are you reading?
Those are bands.
What's the first one? Clit
Eater. That's a part of the woman's vagina.
No, I know.
I let you know it's a good place to work.
I know, man. I know, but I'm just saying. Is that have you heard of that band, Joe? Is that like a known band?
Yes, but I would say that we're getting off the rails. We're getting somewhere.
Can you play a song from Clit Eater? Are they on YouTube?
They certainly are. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I would love to hear a bit of Clit Eater. I think probably I'm not the only one listening right now who's like, I want to hear what. They have a song called "Nuke Them All." So
that's the one. It's the official video. We'll do Clit Eater. This is Clit Eater. Nuke Them All. All right,
classic short song.
Right now.
Oh. The choice to have a Confederate flag on there.
They have a Confederate flag. Listen, I was going to say maybe they didn't realize, but it seems very prominent, and the video does seem to be emphasizing it quite a bit. So, Clit Eater, are they what you would call racist band?
I would think if you were Clit Eater, you'd write a sexy song or two.
You expect better from Clit Eater, to be honest. I'm gonna write a letter to Clit Eater and say I'm pretty disappointed in you guys.
This is track 3 of their latest album, From Enslavement to Clitoration.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
That's a good name.
I give him that. Yeah.
This guy goes, CBT and Torso Fuck are great. Don't know the others though. I've only ever heard of some of them by name, but I'll have to check them out. Thanks. This guy goes, Soylent Green's debut album, Pussy Soul. So
that sounds kind of sexy. Like, honestly, as far as the names we've heard so far, that's the first one I've heard where I was like, that could be a sexy song.
Oh, what about this next guy? It simply says, I Come Blood.
Of course, Cannibal Corpse classic.
Oh, yeah. That's a famous song.
Yeah.
Beast wrote Gorgasm. And then the guy finally goes, thanks for all the recommendations, guys, because he's tired of it. And then a deleted post, Chris, we got ourselves a crossover here. Ooh. Everybody get very excited. A crossover guy. Here we go. Sorry to be that guy, but Slanesh is about hedonism in any form. If you roll with this idea, suddenly there's much more death metal available to you. Any bands with lyrics about killing sprees, ecstasy of violence, drug use, etc., are all primed for use. And then the OP says, you're right. Thanks. Have a nice day. So this guy was like, you're not getting the vibe right for your Warhammer character. Yeah, we can help you with a better Warhammer. I understood Slanesh.
I forgot that this had anything that there was any Warhammer mention in the beginning. That I wonder that is so. How did that guy find his way there? I wonder.
Maybe he's a death metal and war.
There's a lot of crossover, man.
Oh yeah. There's gotta be
one of the greatest death metal bands of all time is called Bolt Thrower, which is named directly after a bunch of Warhammer bullshit. I don't really know how Warhammer works, but yeah, it's somewhere in there.
Well, it's pretty simple. I don't know how you. I'm just joking. It's the most complicated thing I've ever heard. We did a whole episode on it, and I was nowhere closer to understanding anything about it. You paint little guys. You
spend a lot of money first, then you paint the little guys, and
you paint the little guys with your money. Yes.
Yeah.